Hello and welcome to another episode of Two Chicks, One Show, where we break down a currently airing show, an episode a week as it airs. My name is Trisha Ennis. She is Kate Calabro. We are the Two Chicks. This week's one show is Agent Carter Season 2, Episode 4. I cannot remember the name of the episode. Kate, take it away.
I don't even look at episode names anymore.
You're too good for them.
So this week we got a slew of flashbacks, which were really interesting, and we learned a lot. They were not parallel, but they were flashbacks of Peggy before she was Agent Carter, and we got some flashbacks of Whitney Frost when
Before she was Whitney Frost.
before she was Whitney Frost, when she was, I think her name was Agnes. So good call on the name change. And basically that was like the big chunk of the episode, or the most interesting part of the episode. Other than that, Peggy and Jarvis kidnapped the hitman that tried to kill Peggy, and they get a little bit more information about the secret society of white men that meet in the bar. Red Foreman, aka the FBI guy, who I have no idea what his name is, comes in and kind of, not so nicely tells Peggy to like back off, that basically everything that she's doing with Suda is not okay, and the FBI is now auditing the West Coast division of the SSR, and Peggy is now just on like vacation and still doing Peggy stuff because no one tells Peggy what to do.
No one does. She's an individual, as we found out in this episode, but she was not always so.
No.
Yeah, I agree that the flashbacks were definitely they were the bulk of the storytelling of this episode. The other stuff that happened was more filler than anything. It was sort of like the extra episode that we got this year, but I liked it still. I liked learning stuff in the flashbacks. I liked learning more about Peggy, and I like sort of seeing the difference between these two like brilliant women who were brought up in such different environments, and how like that affected who they became later on.
I mean, I think in terms of like the season and this specific episode, I think it was a little bit more of a Whitney Frost episode. We get to learn a little bit about why Whitney is Whitney, and why she kind of so far really, besides Peggy, only really attacks men. And if you watch the flashbacks, you kind of learn why she's a little bit, jagged, I guess is the best way to describe her.
Yeah. And she's certainly jagged now.
Physically.
I'm hilarious.
Yeah. It's so funny.
In case you didn't know, I'm a comedian on the side. Yeah, I liked learning the stuff about Whitney. I liked learning the stuff about Peggy. I liked getting a little more information into Peggy's backstory. We get to learn about her brother, who we didn't really hear anything about up until this season. I liked him. And we found out that she was engaged once before.
To a complete dweeb.
To a complete dweeb.
He was so awful.
His whole line. I mean, I agree with his line about like, one thing the war has taught me is that a boring life is a privilege. And I'm like, I agree with you when you're in wartime. Like, a boring life is a privilege a lot of people don't have. But at the same time, why would you want a boring life?
But the thing that was annoying about him, and he's telling this to Michael Carter, who's Peggy's older brother, in the flashback, during World War II, was Peggy's fiance was, he wasn't a soldier. He worked in offices, much like how Frank in Outlander. That's how I saw the parallels. He wasn't a combat warrior, whereas Michael Carter was on the front lines.
So for him, Fred was the Frank to Captain America's Jamie.
Yeah, pretty much.
For all you Outlander fans.
But the whole thing is we like Frank. I don't even know what this guy's name was.
Fred.
His Fred. Okay, Fred.
And dweeby name too. Sorry, Freds.
Fred fans. But for him to be saying those words to a man that's literally probably held a gun to another human being, and that's what happens in war, and you're just sitting in an office in London dealing with filing.
Yeah.
I just thought
Well,
that was like an asshole thing to say.
his line that really bothered me because it just sort of showed how much he didn't really know his own fiance.
Hmm.
That when he said, could you imagine, front lines, something fighting or something, like that's not our Peg. And I'm just like, absolutely nothing. And she's gotten to a point where she'd heard it so many times from him and from other
Hmm.
people that she believed it.
Yeah. So to backtrack, like
Yeah,
in
we should
the
backtrack a little because there's more context to this.
yeah, in the Peggy flashbacks that we got within this episode, we get Peggy playing at her childhood home is the first flashback when she was a little girl and actually like beating up Michael or
Yeah.
getting in a fight with Michael. And then we flash forward to Peggy is working for an agency that helps out in the war and is then enlisted to become like,
Well, I feel like we should point out she's not just working for an agency; she's working for Bletchley Park, which is
which is a
really
big thing for
important.
Trisha. Trisha likes that.
I do like Bletchley Park. Bletchley Park shortened the war by 2 years. Um,
It's also a
Seriously,
great PBS special.
watch The Imitation Game or read a book. It's where the team that was led by Alan Turing cracked the Enigma machine and broke codes during the war. It was a giant place where they did all this. We don't know that she necessarily worked with Turing, but she does mention, I think, working with Turing at Bletchley Park in season 1. She mentions working at Bletchley Park and being a code breaker.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really cool to nerds like me who like all this stuff that she was a code breaker at Bletchley Park during World War II, and that
Mm-hmm.
she was able to do all that stuff. It means she's super smart. And then yes, she gets recruited by like a spy
I
branch
think
of
it was
the
like SEO or something.
SOE.
The other
Um,
letters together,
yeah,
some order.
SOE. And she's recruited by them to train in field work because, and this is another kind of fun thing for nerds like me, because this actually kind of happened. There were throughout Europe, one of the biggest things, like World War II was the beginning of spy fare, like actual spies going in and undermining the Third Reich. So there were actual like rings of spies. There's another TV show which, if you're Canadian, you can watch. It's called X Company. That's actually about one of the first spy training camps in Canada. And one of the things that they did was they would go into countries like France and Europe, and they would recruit people to form a resistance. And that's another one of the ways they were able to stop the advance of the Third Reich. And they did recruit women because women were um, less conspicuous than men.
Mm-hmm.
So there you go. That's your history lesson for today. Peggy Carter was awesome.
Yeah.
Next.
So Peggy's recruited and she kind of is like, well, I don't, and she has this like very like old, like Peggy before she becomes an agent and it's just like a code breaker, has like this very like cutesy bootsy like voice.
She was young.
Yeah, she was supposed to be young, but she also had like this very cutesy voice. And she goes, well, I just got engaged, so I don't know if me and my fiance would
Don't
be.
do a British accent.
Yeah, I'm not very good at it. So, so yeah, she doesn't.
She has to check with her fiance, which I mean, I think she would have done anyway, but I don't. She says like, I'm not a field agent. I'm not cut out for field work, and
Yeah,
it's like, oh, if you only knew what you were going to be like in a year.
yeah. So then the discussion, I guess, is had with the fiance, and she's not going to do it. Flash forward now to her finally meeting Michael Carter at Peggy's engagement party, which I thought it was weird because it's her engagement party, but she's only the three of them are sitting at a table just talking. Like no one else is like, like if it's a party for yourself, you're usually like mingling. Whereas like they're having this very intimate conversation with just three people.
Yeah, I was surprised she said it was her engagement party because they were having such an intimate conversation. I
Yeah,
thought
I thought they were just like out at like a garden bar or something. I don't know. Just having a drink. And the fiance is just like talking about how ridiculous it would be for Peggy to be like this field agent, and it's just so stupid. And like the whole entire time, Michael Carter just like wants to like punch him in the face. He's just like waiting for this guy to like just get up so he could be like, Peggy, what the frig are you doing?
And then he gets up and he asks Peggy what the frick she's doing.
Yeah. And then Peggy finds out that Michael was actually the one that recommended that Peggy be recruited into this program.
Mhm.
So then it gets her
Because
thinking.
that was something that I really liked about her brother, because he wasn't just being a big brother and, like, you know, ribbing her during when they were kids, like they were playing around and it was fun. But when they were adults, like, he actually supports this idea of his
Mhm.
sister being sort of headstrong and being a field agent, going out and actually fighting in the war. And that's one of the things I really liked about him, because I feel like a lot of men in the 40s probably wouldn't necessarily have thought that way regardless. Like, this is my little sister, she's a girl, she's going to stay home, do what
Mhm.
she's supposed to do. You know, she's doing something important for the war and it's a desk job and that's enough. But he
Yeah.
was like, no, you were meant to fight,
Mhm.
which I thought was really cool. And I liked Michael, and now I'm sad.
Yeah. Because then flash forward again.
Now we're in 1940.
And Peggy's family, as she's trying on her wedding dress, all emotional,
It's pretty.
gets the awful knock that a lot of families during this time period got during the war. And they find out that Michael died during combat or while fighting the war. And this kind of just changes everything for Peggy. She breaks off her engagement and joins the program, and now is Agent Carter.
Yeah.
But this is a big moment for Marvel Universe fans, because now we're a little bit confused. Because with Michael being dead,
It sort of puts the kibosh on a very big fan theory.
yeah.
And with something that I'm curious about. So why don't you talk about the fan theory a little bit?
Which one?
The one about who, what's her face, Stacy's
Violet?
not fiance, Violet,
Yeah.
starting with a V.
I think
Violet.
I think it's Violet.
I think it's Violet too. I think you're right.
Um,
About who she might be and who she's probably not at this
yeah.
point.
So we all saw in Winter Soldier Agent 13?
She's Agent 13 is the only way that they talked about her in the movie, but I don't know if she's credited in the movie, but she was definitely originally credited as Agent Carter.
Yes. Which is I believe in the comic she is Peggy's niece.
I believe so, yes. Don't
For
quote me on that.
yeah. So there was a popular fan theory that came out a couple weeks ago when Agent Carter season 2 kicked off. It was on the Marvel Report, and it was a theory that one of the writers came up with, which we both agreed was pretty cool. And basically it said that they thought that maybe Michael would come in present day Agent Carter timeline to Hollywood, meet Violet, and Violet and Michael would get married and become the great grandmother, or would it just be grandmother?
Grandmother.
Grandmother of
Sharon.
Sharon Carter, Agent 13.
Yes.
And that
So,
would be like how it was linked. But clearly that's not happening.
yeah. Yeah, Sharon Carter in the comics, and this, if there are crazy Marvel fans out there who can correct me or flesh out anything that I say, because this is just mostly Googling, because I haven't read a lot of Captain America comics, but Sharon Carter in the comics is Captain America's actual love interest.
Yes.
And she is the great granddaughter or grandniece or something of Peggy Carter. And so basically, when she was introduced in Winter Soldier, I was like, "Oh, yay!" And then I realized that how we're going to find out who she is, or how Cap is going to find out who she is in the next movie, is going to be depressing. But so
It's also a little
essentially,
twisted, Captain America, like, find a different family.
right? But it's nice they come together.
Sure.
Also, it'd be way creepier if he had to go and then talk to Peggy about it.
Yeah.
So anyway, so yeah, Sharon is in the new movie. So somehow she has to be related to Peggy, because honestly, in my opinion, there's no point in doing Sharon Carter if she's not going to be the same family
Yeah.
as Peggy. So I'm interested to see how that happens. Like, maybe she's her granddaughter, which honestly creepier than it being her grandniece.
I know,
But
like, a lot of things that I've seen is that Sharon Carter's always been Peggy's niece,
yeah.
from what I've seen, like, online.
Yeah, that was my understanding of it too, from like before Winter Soldier came out, but I just didn't delve very deep in it. So I'm interested to see how that's gonna end up playing out, whether we'll even see how it plays out, or maybe it'll be explained in Civil War. I'm assuming it'll be explained in Civil War.
Yeah.
But since Michael died, now we don't know what the parentage is gonna be like. Like, did Michael actually die? Maybe he's not actually dead.
I don't know, because she said, I think he's dead.
I think he's dead too, but I'm just saying, maybe he's not. You don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe was he married and did he have kids? Like,
Yeah.
is there a family we didn't meet? Even though we met Michael, we just didn't meet his wife and his daughter or son or
Or there
whatever. It
could
wasn't
be
his son.
more Carter siblings and we just don't know.
Or she could have another brother somewhere.
Mhm. So, I
So
mean,
we don't know exactly what the deal is, but I'm interested to find out. And we'll find out before too long anyway, because either we'll find out this season in the next few weeks, or we'll find out when Civil War comes out in May.
mhm.
Um, but other than that, I mean, that was pretty much the end of Peggy's flashbacks. But the more sort of depressing flashbacks, like even more so than your brother dying, because we know like what that does for Peggy is
Mhm.
watching Agnes grow up
Yeah.
in her really crummy situation with her mom sort of doing what she had to, I guess, in the late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah, so I mean, I get Whitney Frost is, I mean, several years older than Peggy.
Yeah, she is,
She's at
I would
least
say
40, I think.
she's 38-40
Okay.
because
Because I was
she
trying
became
to do
the
the
highest
math.
earner by the time she was 38.
Yeah. Like she's had a very long and established career, both as like a super genius as well as, Hollywood sweetheart.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, her flashbacks for her as a little girl in I think the
Oklahoma.
1920s in Oklahoma, and she's already like doing like trying to fix the radio.
Right. One thing, Peggy brings some of her like sketches to Jason Wilkes, to Dr.
Mhm.
Wilkes, and she says, so she was a genius, and he says, no, I'm a genius. She defies
Yeah.
categorization. So essentially, little 9-year-old Agnes is, fixing the radio with no sweat and,
Mhm.
tinkering and stuff, which is, I think, not unheard of for people of genius level intellect. But
Mhm.
her mom is not so awesome.
Her mom's not on that level.
No, no, no.
So basically, Agnes's father is no longer in the picture, and Agnes has this uncle Bud,
It's not my
who,
uncle.
yeah, is not her uncle, and the mother makes that perfectly clear as she follows him upstairs and tells Agnes not to bother her for several hours. And
Several hours was the part that I was like, really?
and Uncle Bud takes care of them until one day when Agnes is a teenager, and Uncle Bud finds a younger, prettier um, upgrade, which is an awful
Yeah.
thing to say to Agnes's mom, and wants them out of the house. And then at that point, Agnes's mom is just like furious and tells her that the only way she's going to be anything in the world is she learns to stop thinking, like using her brain and start using her face, because that's the only way she'll be able to make it.
hmm
So,
And I feel like we need to point out that twice over the course of Agnes's flashback, she is told she'd be so pretty if she smiled.
yeah.
And you sort of see the kind of change that what happened to her like has on her personally, because when she's a little girl and he says, I bet you'd be really pretty if you smiled, she goes, I'm thinking.
Mhm.
And then when she is an adult and the agent says, I bet you'd be really pretty if you smiled, she smiles.
Yes. So then from that, she moves to Hollywood and become just is scouted by an agent
Yeah.
outside a movie theater. And so they don't really explain. I'm a little bit confused about her timeline. So was she like this inventor genius as well as being an actress at the same time?
I
Or
would
was it,
assume she would have had to be because she was recruited in 1934.
yeah.
She became an actress in 1934. She was at least found by um the dude in 1934. She but she did all those inventions during the
The
war.
war.
And
Yeah.
they don't say the war about World War One. They're talking about World War Two. So
Mhm.
I I would assume that she would have had to been doing both
Because
somehow.
I don't know if it's just me or if anyone else that watched it. I had this like thing where I thought she was this inventor genius, and then to like kind of hide her identity, she became an actress and changed her name and became something else. So people
I,
wouldn't associate her with being the genius.
maybe. I mean, yeah, you definitely get that sentiment from like previous episodes when they're talking about it. I got it as she was the genius first and then became an actress.
Hmm.
Um, I could easily see her being an actress and then during the war being compelled to do this
Hmm.
and then being a genius and making all these inventions and then because you'll notice that like her inventions are co-opted by Isodyne, so I would assume she was either married or with her husband
Hmm.
Chadwick um
What a name.
during the war. So there's probably a lot of overlap in the time that that happened. So I would think that like she was with him or they were married. He was a contractor during the war and she did all this work and he just stole the ideas.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, that makes sense
Yeah.
because so that was the flashbacks we got of Whitney Frost. Um, in present, well, current Agent Carter timeline, it's not present time because
1947.
yeah, um, Whitney is now just like sitting in her dressing room in her house, trying to figure out how she can control or use the zero matter that is now inside of her. So she has like rats sent to her and she does experiments. And the big chunk of what's happening in 1947 is Peggy and Jarvis kidnap the hitman that tried to kill Peggy.
Oh, that man has the same wound that you
Yeah,
inflicted upon your attacker.
yeah.
What a
So
coincidence.
they take the tranquilizers that Jarvis just drives around with
Because of the koala.
because of the koala that's on the Stark property, um, not the flamingo. um,
No, Bernard doesn't need tranquilizers.
and they shoot the guy several times because he's a big man, so it took him a couple to get down. Jarvis actually shoots himself, or does the guy shoot
I
Jarvis?
don't remember. I like
Jarvis
the
gets
way.
yeah, Jarvis gets stuck and he's like drunk. He's like all like he called Jarvalicious or something.
Something like that.
Um, so then Sousa and Peggy try to interrogate the hitman. They're not really getting that far with him. He does give up a couple names of who's in the club, which leads to the SSR trying to raid the club, which leads to Red Foreman FBI man coming in and being like, "You're audited, no!" and being like approaching Peggy for the first time.
Yeah, so he confronts Peggy for the first time and he basically says, that he's like got her number and
Watch it.
Jack thinks very highly of you and watch out and stuff and then he follows that up with like this not so veiled threat about the Hollywood 10 and that he will essentially label her as a communist, her and all her friends as
Which is
communists.
like the biggest threat that could happen right now to a
Right,
person.
in 1947, that is that up through the 50s, that was the biggest threat that could be lobbed against anybody, especially a foreigner.
Mm-hmm.
And he points out, especially one that's not even an American.
Yeah, like he makes it perfectly clear that like he could pretty much ruin her.
Yeah, easily.
So, um, so yeah, so that's basically it for Peggy in the current timeline. The hitman does escape. He
They
goes
let
to
him.
yeah, he goes to because they bug him,
Hmm.
and he goes to the Frost estate. I don't even. That's not the
Chadwick.
Chadwick. I don't. Is that the last name or his
Yeah,
first name?
that's the last name.
Okay, and
Got you a button.
and he confesses that like Peggy Carter took him and blah blah and like they injected him with something and it was nothing.
I'm sorry, it was a very severe case of the common cold.
It's intense. It was an intense.
An intense case of the common cold.
But you told him it was like malaria.
He told him it was malaria, but it was an intense cold.
um, and as like he's like confessing that he like talked and like he told people, like Whitney Frost is just going around to every window and shutting the blinds. And you're just like, shit is about to get real. And you're just like, and she just, and no one's paying attention to her because
Of
she's like
course not, because
because
she's a
she's a
woman. That's
woman.
the
Yeah.
whole point of the show.
And all of a sudden she just like goes up, like she keeps questioning him, like, what did you say? Like who, like what names did you give? Blah blah blah. And then she just goes up and like she like just absorbs him. I don't even know
She
what it's
grabs him by
called.
the throat, and then like essentially it like causes him to get all black veiny, and then he
Yeah,
just like gets
whatever.
eaten by the zero matter and sucked into her hand.
And so now Chadwick is like, what? What's happening?
What
What's
are you? And she says,
yeah,
whatever I want.
yeah. And then like boom. It should be noted that she was supposed to go to like that they were doing like a Times magazine cover and she was supposed to go, but she couldn't go because of her face.
Which, by the way, is now a lot worse.
Yeah, her face is getting worse, but before that she could have gone because her bangs were just like perfectly covering it. Um, so he's been like wondering what the hell's been up with her, and now he knows that like she is
A psycho.
something. So now we're gonna have to see what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, it left us in a good place because the whole time Peggy and company are hearing what's going on. So they know that something is definitely, like, Whitney is definitely the right person to be following. Her husband is small potatoes, but of course he's connected to this club that, you know, is obviously working in some way. Although I would assume that Whitney is probably going to take care of them.
I mean,
Um,
clearly she can take care of anyone.
anyone at all.
I mean, it's kind of like her husband is like the face. Like she's like he's the puppet and she's the
Mhm,
puppeteer, and he
most
completely
definitely.
yeah, and he completely like allows it. Like I don't know if he even knows, but like he's just completely whipped by this woman.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways the same way that last season the SSR was sort of the face and Peggy was the puppeteer. Like they didn't realize they were being manipulated and that she was doing all of this stuff under the scenes because she was a woman and they were ignoring her. I think it's the same way for Chadwick and Whitney in that he doesn't realize because he doesn't believe his wife could do stuff like that. So he's not because he doesn't believe it of her. He's oblivious. So he doesn't think his wife can manipulate all of this stuff with his business. So of course he doesn't. He's surprised when he finds out. Oh wow, my wife is a genius and also a psycho.
I mean, I think Chadwick's days are numbered. So
Oh, probably. I'm assuming he's going to get absorbed by his wife at some point.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like I don't think he's gonna be.
One other thing that we didn't touch on yet is what's happening with Jason Wilkes. Very little, but essentially he's like losing grip on reality.
Yeah,
He keeps seeing that crack that's in Whitney's face. And
normal things.
huh, and sort of being drawn back to it, which makes some sense because he's come into contact with zero matter, so his cells have been affected in that way, and they're probably just trying to go back to the dimension that they're
They're
supposed to
being
be in.
called home.
I'm really hoping that Peggy doesn't have a depressing ending to her relationship again.
I mean, she probably will.
More than likely, because we don't like to let our heroes be happy. I don't know.
Um,
I mean, this relationship is going to end more than likely, but still.
I mean, I'm still just very confused about the whole Dr. Wilkes thing.
Why?
And like, like, what did? How is he still visible? Because
Because
like,
Stark keeps spraying him with that
like,
crap.
Stark has been in like Peru for like.
Then they keep spraying him with that crap.
Because like they'll be like, "Oh, are you hungry?" Well, how is he supposed to eat? Like they're just asking stupid. Like, have you slept? How is he gonna lay down? Like, what? Like,
Well, he can stand on the floor, so he's got to be able to lay down.
but like, yeah. So like, is he? He can stay on the floor, but like when I go like that, like there's just like things that are like fundamentally that are just not making sense. Like he should be levitating then.
Well, it's
Like
like
he
any
shouldn't.
it's like any TV show that puts something out of phase. Like that thing should be out of phase with everything. It shouldn't be able to move across surfaces that are in your phase
Yeah,
because it just shouldn't work that way. But it does because it has to because limitations of television. So just suspend your disbelief a little bit
I
and you'll be
know.
fine. You have to just breathe and let it happen.
I mean, it's just like annoying me. I'm not gonna lie. Like I'm like I'm not interested in it. I'm just like okay.
I like Wilkes.
it's not that I don't like him. I'm just like not interested in like, I'm invisible, but you can see me, but how much longer? Like,
Okay, whatever. I guess I'm not super interested in it either, but at the same time, I like it. So
I'm like not tuning in to be like, oh, did they figure out Wilkes' problem this week? Like, it's not like something that's like on my list of things I'm hoping that is solved.
yeah, we'll see. Well, hopefully it'll get solved soon. My guess is that it's going to come into play in the eventual how we take down people thing.
I mean, yeah, like they could be using his invisibility for something else.
But he's not invisible.
Like, yeah, but if they don't spray him with that shit, why can't he break into the damn Arbor Club and find out more stuff? That would have been my first
thing. Definitely snoop. He could definitely snoop.
Hello, anyway. You have an invisible man, and you're not.
Why are you not utilizing this? Why are you bugging people when?
And he's not only is he invisible, he's also a genius, so he could like figure out other stuff.
We'll see if they end up using him. I'm sure he's going stir crazy at this point, so we'll see if he ends up convincing them to use his talents in other ways. But yeah, so that was the episode.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean,
it wasn't like super exciting, but it was like character building.
Yeah, I mean, it was a filler episode you get in the middle of the season, so
yeah, like no one really got their butt kicked except for like the hitman, but not even that.
And bad. The koala.
Well, we didn't see them tranquilize the
koala, but it was funny. Jarvis gets all the best lines.
Jarvis does get the best lines. I'm kind of disappointed that we haven't seen Anna Jarvis in like 2 weeks.
Me too. I miss her.
I mean, like, why isn't she like buzzing around, like questioning? Like, I feel like she'd be like questioning Wilkes about like his life all the time. Like,
right? She should be sitting there with like some tea and crumpets that he can't have.
Oh, do you want one? And then like, oh, never mind. Like, or like she should be like chasing the koala or like the flamingo around.
She wouldn't chase the koala.
Or like sunbathing and like with the flamingo.
Yeah, she would be like having a drink while watching Jarvis chase the koala.
Yeah, and laughing at him because that's the only point of Jarvis at this point. It's just for comedic relief. And he's also kind of a genius. Kind of. But I don't know.
Anyway, so that was the episode. I liked it. There were some people who didn't like it, but I liked the flashbacks. I like learning more about these characters, so it's nice. Yeah.
So it's good.
Any other thoughts before we leave it for the week?
No, I don't really have any predictions. I mean,
neither do I. Like last season, I'm mostly enjoying the ride. My standard predictions remain.
Yeah, I mean, clearly Red Foreman's the bad guy.
Well, duh. Jack did not reveal what he learned about the Arena Club last week, so.
Jack wasn't even in this episode.
I know. I was surprised.
And Peggy's on vacation.
Yeah, she took all her vacation days.
Jack approved them.
He did.
So that's about it.
That is. All right. So with that, I think we're going to sign off for this episode of Two Chicks, One Show. Let us know what you thought about the episode, what you think about Agent Carter so far, what you think about our opinions, I suppose, but don't be rude. We'll ignore you. You can let us know in the comments here on the website, allgeek2me.net, on Twitter, at allgeek2me.net is the website, at Trisha Ennis is me, at Kate Calabro is her, hashtag Two Chicks, One Show is the hashtag with the numbers to save characters. We will see you guys next week.
Thanks for explaining that, because it's not
You're welcome.